So this chapter opens up with us seeing what happened to Bakugo. At the end of the previous chapter, he was seemingly killed by Shigaraki / All For One, and it turns out that that's pretty much the case, because Best Jeanist is checking on him here, and he says there's no pulse. His heart is ripped to shreds. And yeah, I guess that confirms that he's straight up dead, but it still feels like there's a chance that he could come back, mainly because of the whole pulse thing here. Now, the heart ripped to shreds, that's definitely not good, but you know, we are in battle manga after all, and there are some things that can happen. But whenever you hear like pulse or there's no pulse in like a show or something like that, usually, you know, it means that like it could bring the pulse back maybe. But also after Best Jeanist says this, Shigaraki is like boasting big time. He's like, this time he's gone for good, putting so much responsibility on the shoulders of a kid. You did this to him. How very disappointing, Eraser. Who's next? Who wants to be turned into another welcome present for Izuku Midoriya? So that's like super harsh, especially like given the context of everything. It just doesn't seem like Horikoshi would necessarily just let that fly without any recoil or justification. Hey, also guys, if you like my Hero content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just needed a reminder, here you go. Thanks. But however, at the bottom of this panel, we see Best Jeanist doing something. He's doing something to Bakugo, right? Because he's standing over Bakugo. He was the one who confirmed that he had no pulse, and his sleeves are like coming apart here, which denotes that he's activating his quirk. And it looks like his arms and hands are on Bakugo. So he's definitely doing something here. And we speculated about this for like the last 2 weeks, but considering that Best Jeanist is Fiber Master and he can control any fiber, it's possible that he can control like the muscle fibers in the heart or the collagen fibers. And I know that sounds like so crazy, especially because it's already ripped up, but it's like, guys, again, it's battle manga. But with this, maybe he's not necessarily controlling like the actual fibers of the heart, but he's going to like repair his heart with like denim or something. Again, battle manga. But just this has really given me hope more than anything, that I'm thinking Bakugo is coming back at this point. And it might not necessarily be Best Jeanist by himself that is fully able to do this. Maybe with the assistance of another hero's quirk, he's able to bring Bakugo back here. But we're cutting away from that, and we're surprisingly coming back to Shoto and Dabi. We haven't seen them since like 353, I think. And we're finding out like what was going on with Dabi, because when we last left off with him, we saw like that light coming from his chest, and that, you know, led to tons of speculation. Is it like a quirk awakening? Is he gonna blow up the way that like Lady Nagant did, meaning that like All For One secretly put a bomb in him? But no, it's neither actually. It turns out that Dabi was just able to copy Shoto's Flash Fire Fist, because he says, I knew it. It's so much better in person. It's like I got a feel for it somehow. Just before you buried me in ice, I copied your move as a last ditch effort. So yeah, that's it. And I'm not mad at this at all. I'm glad that it's not some kind of like quirk awakening and he's getting like ice or something. But I also wouldn't have minded if he blew up too. But now he's in his own little proprietary Flash Fire Fist mode, similar to what we saw Shoto use in their fight. And he's like melting Onima. I don't know if Onima's gonna die, but he might. But yeah, it looks like this fight is going to continue, and that's fine. It felt a little too rushed in the beginning, so it's fine if it's going to continue, but I just hope it's more interesting than it was originally. But Dabi screams to Skeptic, who apparently has been listening through this device on one of the Nomus nearby, and Skeptic figures that Dabi is looking for Endeavor, and he gives him an update saying that like Endeavor's still facing off against All For One at Gunga Mountain. And I kind of just want to skip right to what's going on with All For One and Endeavor, because when we come to the end of the chapter, we're like fully seeing what's going on here, because we haven't really seen what was going on with them since chapter 357. At the end, we saw that All For One was like activating either Aries quirk or like variant of it or something, because he like started to grow back his eye and ear suddenly after he said he was going to use like his last ditch effort or whatever, which was implied to be experimental and it may or may not work. And we saw like this image of Eri with the quirk destroying bullet. And now that we're coming back to him, it turns out that that's pretty much what's going on here, because it looks like Eri's rewind magic stuff is like coming over his body, and I guess for the first time we're seeing the most of All For One's face. Well, mostly. There is still some rewind stuff on the left part of his face, but this is more than what we typically got, because when we did see what All For One's face looked like before, All Might Potato fight it, it was, obstructed by shadows around the eye. And there's no like huge reveal here, because originally there wasn't really much left up to the imagination at that point. But considering that this is like the end of the chapter and nothing is really said about what's going on here, it's kind of just All For One doing his standard thing where he just, talks crap to the heroes. We don't really know what's going on. So like I said, he's using either like full-blown rewind, or it's just some like variant or version of it or a derivative of it that Yujiko was able to synthesize or something from the quirk destroying bullets, meaning that like I don't know if he's fully rewinding himself here, or he just was able to isolate the aspect of the quirk that can like heal you or something. But if he is like fully rewinding himself here, it's like, how far did he go back? Because if he is rewinding himself, however many years, it's possible that he may rewind himself back to a point of where he had like different quirks maybe. And that brings a whole other slew of issues and questions with it, because like if he is rewinding himself back to a previous point in time, and I guess the All For One quirk factor would as well, then does it come with the quirks that he had originally? Because throughout time he's had different quirks, whether he takes them at a specific time or he just gives them away at another time. And if that is the case, then he might be way more powerful now than what he originally was. I mean, aside from just having a complete body and whatever kind of power up comes with that, quirks aside. And I really wouldn't be surprised if he does get new quirks here, because it goes back to what we talked about last week with that Jump promotional art that Horikoshi released a couple weeks ago, where we saw like All For One pretty much in this form facing off against Izuku, and that led us to think like, oh, that's like a spoiler, because the last thing we saw was like his face regenerating, and in that picture we saw him without the potato face taking on Izuku. And also in chapter 357 it ended with us seeing Izuku being encountered by something in the distance, and it was Yoichi of all people who was worried about it. Yoichi, the brother of All For One. So it's possible that like he's using one of his new quirks that just lets him fly or something. I mean, we know that he had airwalk, but it also looked like there was like multiple things in the distance, so I don't know, maybe he's gets some Nomus with him and they all bring him there or something. But that also implies that I guess he's just going to straight up either defeat or just kill Endeavor, Hawks, and everyone else here, which is understandable because they're, really spent, and he's just getting his second wind here. But aside from that, let's go into, is he Izuku's father? And still don't know. This doesn't really prove anything now that we're kind of fully seeing his face, because he still, like I said, looks like how All For One looked, and it never really implied that he looked like Izuku or anything. So the verdict is still out, and like I've been saying, I'm not married to the whole thing about him being Izuku's father. I just think it would make the story more interesting, if anything. But if it just turns out he's not, and Hisashi Midoriya is just some random dude that maybe we see in the final chapter for like 2 panels, then it's whatever. But let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments. What do you think's going on with All For One? Do you think he has been fully rewound? Let me know. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.